Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Central Oregon. I am Tere Pelaez.
And I'm Dirk Matthias.
And we will be your worship leaders this morning.
We are an inclusive community that affirms the mind, heart, and body in our search for truth and meaning. Here you'll find both comfort and challenge for your spiritual journey.
Whatever your age, income, or the color of your skin, you're welcome here. Whatever your sexual orientation, gender identity, or life story, you are welcome here. If your beliefs differ from ours, but you're called to love, you are welcome here.
Our opening words today are from the Reverend Marilyn Sewell. Come into this circle of love and justice. Come into this community where we can dream and believe in those dreams. Come into this holy space where we remember who we are and how we want to live. Come now and let us worship together.
Please join us in a new version of a familiar song, There is Love, recorded by Foothills Unitarian Church in Fort Collins, Colorado. If you have a chalice at home, we invite you to light it now. These words are offered by the Igreja Unitaria do Rio de Janeiro, Unitarian Community of Rio de Janeiro.
We light this flame as a reminder of our mission of being a light in the world, in unity with those who came before us, with whom we are a spiritual family. We shall be able to commit to the building of a community of free faith beyond geographical limits and personal beliefs. May we be a shelter to all who need it the most. Amen.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Softly. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Good morning, I'm Chela Sloper, your Congregational Life Facilitator, and I have today's announcements. First, a very warm welcome to all who are in the service today, and especially those who may be visiting for the first or second time, or even more times, but visiting nonetheless. If you'd like to get on our email list, please, you can click, there will be a link in the chat where you can sign up. It's for our virtual visitors, and that way we can stay in touch with you. So first, I have a few announcements for our religious exploration program. So if you are one of those kids or your children are registered already in our RE program, there are a couple things that are coming up in August that this is the last week to register for. 3rd to 6th graders have a regional Minecraft camp, and that's going to be August 16th to 20th. And so this is the last week to register for that. Then that same week in August, there will be a virtual rainbow camp for kindergartners through 2nd graders. And so once again, this is the last week to register. So please contact Amy Brock, or there probably is a registration form with an RSVP through the RE newsletter. If you have any questions, go ahead and email Amy at amy@uufco.org. Lastly, there's another youth opportunity, which is that the 7th through 12th graders have a plan to float the river on Saturday, July 31st. There's still a few spaces left. So if you would like to go, please contact Amy. I've already floated the river this year. You don't want to miss it. So be sure to contact Amy about that. So now I have a good news, bad news announcement. So the good news is we've been doing really well in our recycling of bottles and cans. We use these blue bags, we take them to recycling centers, or for those who can't get there, leave them by the back door of the church. We've raised over $10,000 by recycling our bottles and cans. So thank you very much. We don't want that to stop. If there are some of you who haven't gotten your blue bags, go and pick them up by the back door of the church. Okay, now here's the bad news. And I don't want to scold anybody, but Bottle Drop company has said that, and they're tracking our submissions or, our deposits by the zebra code. So there are some people that are turning in their bottles and cans and putting crushed cans or non-returnable bottles or bags and other detritus. So the thing is, the bottle drop people don't like that, and they will cancel our program if we don't shape up. So this is a request, a good-hearted request that that we keep our trash separate from our recycle bags and just do our best to really only put in the recyclables that they'll be able to read on their scanners. Okay, and thank you very much. This is raising funds now for our social justice program. So it really does help the congregation by giving them some funds to work with. Okay, then beginning next Sunday, August 1st, and through September 5th, you're invited to go to the church on Sunday mornings to watch Zoom there together. We're going to be setting up Linus Pauling, and there will be hosts there, mostly from the board or the COVID task force team, that will welcome you to the building, show you how things are set up, and then you can participate in the Zoom service together. We're asking that regardless of your vaccination status, that you be masked, and that unfortunately there's no singing. As I like to say, if there's irrepressible humming, we will not prohibit that. So we do want you to come enjoy one another's company, but it will be a Zoom service. Then lastly, I just want to give a big shout out and a thanks to all those who responded to the Helping Hands request. We have a member who had foot surgery, very painful, and we had somebody reach out to get important medications to her, and food is being prepared. It's on its way. And I just want to thank you for responding to that request for service and love in a really tangible way. So I think that's it for announcements. And before I go, blessings on your day.
Good morning. I'm Amy Brock, and I'm the Director of Religious Exploration for Children and Youth. Today, we're exploring love. I invite you to think for a moment about what feels loving to you. Sometimes when we talk about love in RE, I ask, how do you know your mom or your dad love you? And the young people usually laugh and they say something like, I don't know, they just do, okay? But it's a really important question, because how can we be loving? How can we honor our covenant to bring love to the spirit of this fellowship if we don't know what it is? If we can't recognize when we're experiencing it and then share that experience with other people? Thinking about this reminded me of a story that I read this week. And as I share it, I want you to think about what moments might have been loving in this story. A mom and a dad took their family to the pool. The dad jumped into the pool with their teenage son, and the mom started playing with their two younger daughters nearby, outside of the pool. One of their daughters was a baby, so she was really little. The dad and the son were having so much fun talking and connecting in the pool, until a little while later, the son asked his dad if they could go and jump off the diving boards together. And although they were having so much fun and really enjoying their time together, the dad said no. And that was surprising to the son. But the dad explained. He said, we've been having so much fun together, and now I think it's time for me to go and check on your mother and your sisters. And the son was a little bit confused. He looked over at his mom, who was laughing and playing with his sisters, and they seemed to be having such a good time. And he said, Mom looks fine. She's got it. They're good. We can go play. We can go on the diving boards. But his dad said no. And then his dad explained that he loved their mom very much. And he said that while he would love to keep spending time with his son, and he would love to go and jump off the diving boards together, that leaving their mom to take care of his sisters, including the baby, while he spent time with someone who could kind of take care of themselves a little bit more, wouldn't be fair. He explained that when we love people, we take turns with them. We make sure that we are checking in with them and asking them about what they need help with. And we definitely need more help with babies than we need help with teenagers sometimes. So the teenage son said that he understood. He said that he was enjoying spending time with his dad, but now he also understood that the loving thing to do in that moment was for them to stop having a good time and go help their mom. And that could be fun too. Love can be a really challenging word to explain, but it doesn't have to be. Our faith has principles and sources that we look to help us understand things like love. One of those sources is a book called the Bible. And in one part of the Bible, someone wrote the following things about love. I wonder if some of these things that I'm about to share with you, if you will agree that you also feel about love. They said, love is patient. Love is kind. Love is being content with what you have. Love isn't proud. Love isn't rude. Love cares about other people. Love isn't angry. Love doesn't hold grudges. Love seeks the truth. Love protects, trusts, hopes, and never ever gives up. Maybe you did agree with some of those things, or maybe you have some other things that you would add to that list that are just as important too. If you haven't thought about it in a while, this might be a good time to just take a few moments this morning to wonder more about what is love? How do we know when we're living and experiencing it? And how can we share it with others in our lives? May you be loved today. And so ends our time together.
Please join us now in saying our children's covenant together. In this place, I am loved. In this place, I am kind. In this place, I am loving. In this place, I am a friend to the earth and all animals and people. In this place, I am loved.
I'd like to introduce a time for joys and sorrows. You may be full of joy this morning, or you may be carrying heavy burden. This is a time when we have the opportunity to share what is in our hearts and to connect with the community that's gathered. The chat box is now open for sharing of joys and sorrows.
So before the reading today, I wanted to give credit both to the author who requested that we do so, and then also just unpack one little reference in this poem. I learned in college that when we're hearing poetry read out loud, it's really best to hear it at least twice and sometimes more times. And so I've asked Tere and Dirk to both read the poem today. And this is from Chela Harkin's book, Susceptible to Light. This book of poetry was put into my hands a few months ago, and it is so delightful. So we have Chela's permission to use the poem, and there was one reference in the poem that I wanted to make sure that everybody knew, and it is it's Tetris, and there are these cubes that that you sometimes use digitally, and there are other forms where you're just trying to fit all of these blocks into place. So there's a reference to Tetris in the poem. I wanted you to know what that was and not be confused like I was the first time I heard it or read it. So anyway, so this is Chela Harkin's poem, Say Wow.
Say wow. Each day before our surroundings become flat with familiarity and the shapes of our lives click into place, dimensionless and average as Tetris cubes. Before hunger knocks from our bellies like a cantankerous old man and the duties of the day stack up like dishes, and the architecture of our basic needs commissions all thought to construct the four-door sedan of safety. Before gravity clings to our skin like a cumbersome parasite and the colored dust of dreams sweeps itself obscure in the vacuum of reason. Each morning before we wrestle the world and our hearts into the shapes of our brains, look around and say, wow. Feed yourself fire. Scoop up the day entire like a planet-sized bouquet of marble, sent by the universe directly into your arms, and say, wow. Break yourself down into the basic components of primitive awe, and let the crescendo of each moment carbonate every capillary and say, wow. Yes, before our poems become calloused with revision, let them shriek off the page of spontaneity. And before our metaphors get too regular, let the sun stay a conflagration of homing pigeons that lights through fire each day to find us.
Say wow. Each day, before our surroundings become flat with familiarity and the shapes of our lives click into place, dimensionless and average as Tetris cubes, before hunger knocks from our bellies like a cantankerous old man, and the duties of the day stack up like dishes, and the architecture of our basic needs commissions all thought to construct the four-door sedan of safety, before gravity clings to our skin like a cumbersome parasite, and the colored dust of dreams sweeps itself obscure in the vacuum of reason. Each morning before we wrestle the world and our hearts into the shape of our brains, look around and say, wow. Feed yourself fire. Scoop up the day entire, like a planet-sized bouquet of marble sent by the universe directly into your arms. And say, wow. Break yourself down into the basic components of primitive awe and let the crescendo of each moment carbonate every capillary and say, wow. Yes, before our poems become calloused with revision, let them shriek off the page of spontaneity. And before our metaphors get too regular, let the sun stay a conflagration of homing pigeons that flights through fire each day to find us.
We are here to be lifted in love. Look at the birds, they tell us. We are here to be lifted in love. Look at the trees, they tell us we're here to be lifted in love, to listen to love as a flower raises its face to the sun. We are all one, here to be lifted in grace and love. We are here to be lifted in love. Look at the sky, it tells us we are here to be lifted in love. Look at the trees, they tell us we're here to be lifted in love, to listen to love as the children raise all their faces to the sun. We are all one, here to be lifted in grace and love. We are here to be lifted in love. Look at the trees, they tell us we are here to be lifted in love. Look at the seas, they tell us we're here to be lifted in love, to listen to love as the flower raises its face to the sun. We are all one, here to be lifted in grace and love.
So here to be lifted in love and say, wow. So let's take just a second and let those impressions, those images settle and digest in our hearts. The second reading for today is from Fyodor Dostoevsky. Love the animals, love the plants, love everything. If you love everything, you will perceive the divine mystery in things. If you love everything, you will perceive the divine mystery in things. Once you perceive it, you will begin to comprehend it better every day. And you will come at last to love the whole world with an all-embracing love. Love the animals, love the plants, love everything. If you love everything, you will begin to perceive the divine mystery in things. Once you perceive it, you will begin to comprehend it better every day. And you will come at last to love the whole world with an all-embracing love. The Summer of Love happened in 1967. And the reason why this became a kernel for my consideration for today's talk was about the timeliness of today's opportunity to be up at bat here and sharing with you today. And I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. But some of you know that I grew up in San Francisco and knew about the Summer of Love, but didn't really know a lot about it. So that became a reason to do a little research, and it was fun to learn some things. So firstly, considering the milieu, the time of what was going on in American life and culture, the civil rights movement had been active powerfully since the early and mid 50s. And so those activities were still going on for the dignity of African-American persons in particularly, and by extension for all persons. The Jesus movement was also happening from the mid 50s. There was this move toward less formality, toward a more experiential way of connecting with the heart of Christianity. So that was also in the air. Then think about what was happening with music. The Beatles got together in 1960, the Rolling Stones in 62. Jefferson Airplane and the Grateful Dead were both 1965. So by those representations, we know that already there were things moving and shaking throughout American culture. And of course, San Francisco did become a sort of hotspot for what was emerging in culture at that time. So, right, the tectonic shifts in music, there was a loosening, shall we say, of the moral cinch around sexuality, drugs, and mind-altering substances and practices were being adopted and experimented with. And so there was, again, just a lot happening in content and the spirit of things. And something was starting to emerge from all of this newness, which was a lightness and an openness, a kindness, an interest in the world in which we live. And then some events were in line happening again in San Francisco. So on October 6th, 1966, there was a love pageant rally. And this was at the polo fields of Golden Gate Park. And this was the invitation that was sent out. They said, bring the color gold, bring photos of personal saints and gurus and heroes of the underground. Bring children, flowers, flutes, drums, feathers, bands, beads, banners, flags, incense, chimes, gongs, cymbals, costumes, and joy. So the love pageant was attended, we understand, by a few thousand people. And so then plans got underway to have this Summer of Love event. And even before that, there was another important event, and that was on January 14th, 1967. There was a human be-in. And so sit-ins were happening around the country. There were some teach-ins, some consciousness-raising events, and they had a human be-in. And this was about personal empowerment. And again, just sort of rising into our birthright as humans in this society. So then a council was formed for the Summer of Love event. And so they set up a free medical clinic. They were arranging housing, water and sanitation, food, and then of course, music and entertainment. And the Council for the Summer of Love was even in touch with local churches and organizations. So it really was a well-organized event. I used to think, oh, maybe the Summer of Love just meant this sort of spontaneous outflowing of love. And there might have been some spontaneity in the whole movement. But so, yes, the Summer of Love event, there was a thing that happened in June of 1967. It was really very well planned. And so this was there was a paper at the time, the San Francisco Oracle, and this is what they were making the announcement for the summer event. They said, a new concept of celebrations beneath the human underground must emerge, become conscious and be shared. So a revolution can be formed with a renaissance of compassion, awareness, and love, and the revelation of the unity of all mankind. That this celebration be conscious and shared, so that the revolution of compassion, awareness, and love might emerge, a revelation of the unity of humankind. So it happened, and over 30,000 people came to San Francisco. And reports from some who were there said there was a spirit of open-heartedness. There really was this sense of optimism toward the future. There was a lack of fear in engaging one another, but it didn't last. And the sweetness soured. Oh yeah, one other thought. I remember hearing one of the women said, it even shimmered. There was something about the quality that it shimmered. So I didn't want to lose that. But yeah, so it did start to fade. And we can ask the questions, well, why did that happen? So other movements, justice horizons also opened up during that time. In fact, some have said that it was the birth of the new left. Excuse me, a little water. People were examining inherited gender roles. There was a time of the women rising in their feminist voices to say that women are fully human too. And all of the limitations and repressions were really not in the spirit of what was emerging. There was the movements for reproductive autonomy, gay rights were all represented there. So and continued rippling out from that time. But again, so what happened? So it seems to me that, and I learned this as a gardener, when you have a sprout that comes up, it needs direct care and it needs a container or some way to ensure that it gets the nutrients that it needs. And there was a lot of optimism. There were ideas about how this new society, how the new world should live. But it became so diverse and dispersed that it didn't sustain. Part of what was happening was that there were thousands of young people now in San Francisco that became homeless. They had come there because of what they heard was happening, this love, this new way of being, and then it caved in. Some of the drug use didn't have the guardrails of purposeful experimentation or interpersonal responsibility, things that we're learning about now as that tide is changing. But so there was addiction, there was some theft happening around that. And so, right, the whole spirit of that time caved in. I think it's important that when new movements start, that it's not fueled by just not doing what was done before, but having real intention about what we're doing going forward and then how to sustain that. So interestingly, a couple of divergent sustaining paths came up after that time. So Richard Alpert was one who, former Harvard professor who was experimenting with LSD and different states of consciousness. He went to India in 1967, met a guru who taught him about the ways of devotion. And then he came back to the US as Ram Dass and he has left this earthly plane, but had been one of the influential teachers of being on a path of mindfulness, of open-heartedness, of service, love, devotion, and surrender. So, so that is Ram Dass. And another pathway that emerged during that time that had been gestating and finding its own form was the Dances of Universal Peace. So on June 24th, 1968, was when the dances were birthed, also in San Francisco. And these arose from a lineage of Sufism. The dances, many of you know, I've been involved in them for quite a while. In fact, this month is my 30th anniversary for being involved in the dances. But the dances incorporate mind with learning a sacred phrase, body, doing unison movements and feeling what the room feels like, beginning to experience open-heartedness and this unity of being. And then, of course, I said the mind, the body, and the heart. Yes, the open-heartedness. And so, right, why did I choose today of the dates that were presented to me by Crystal of the worship team? So Friday was the full moon. And the full moon in July is honored by many people around the world, primarily people in Dharmic traditions, Hinduism, Buddhism, and some others, as Guru Purnima. And this is a day that you honor your gurus or your teachers who are helping dispel darkness. So the word guru just means the teacher who dispels darkness. And so this is a beautiful time, I think, when we can be reminded, who is it in our lives that has taught and is teaching us about love, about open-heartedness, about how to live in harmony and to be open to beauty. So I recommend that in your own heart and mind that you consider who it is that is your teacher in the school of love, who is helping remove the darkness of self-centeredness, of woundedness, of anger or aggression or protection. And that's not to say that there isn't a place for protecting what is precious in our hearts, but how can we all learn to love more? So today's first reading, Say Wow. Chelan Harkin invites us to just notice what's happening. Feel the carbonation. Isn't that a great idea? Feel the carbonation in your own being. And so before we settle into our habitual ways of living our lives, notice things. And that noticing brings a light to the mind. And when it is met also with appreciation and gratitude, it opens the heart. Noticing is an aspect of mindfulness. And I'm so grateful that our meditation group that meets on Friday mornings at 10 a.m. by Zoom is cultivating this opportunity for the mind to be still. And there are different meditation practices that help, again, like raise awareness. What is happening? What is happening in me? So meditation is a really useful practice. Bring curiosity and appreciation to your inner world. And this brings up something that's sometimes maybe a basic first step, is to have an awareness of what's going on inside our hearts and minds to some degree. We can see where our thoughts are going, but we can also take the temperature or check the weather of our interior atmosphere. And then notice again, is my heart light and open? Is there a heaviness? Is there a concern or a fear? And so self-observation becomes a tool where we can find our way into our heart and there see what needs to happen. You know, I've been using this word heart, and other traditions and other vocabularies might refer to soul or spirit. And there's a line from a hymn in our hymnal. It's called A Core of Silence by a man, Jim Riley. And he says, a core of silence breathes before all words, or else the words have little worth. To the words heart or soul or spirit, it comes forth. The words we name them matter not. And then recently, this was so delightful. I was reading a book called Talking God, and it was a collection of interviews with philosophers and some other folks. And one of the people interviewed was a rabbi, Howard Vetstein. And the interviewer was asking, well, how do you, because this rabbi is an atheist. And so the interviewer says, well, how can you be an atheist and yet talk about your prayer and your experience? And he said, belief is not really a Jewish concept. And he was saying, in effect, those questions are irrelevant. Now, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because I know some of us really like chewing on the question, well, who or what is God and how can we know? And there is a quote that I want to share with you. And Jonathan, if you can bring up this slide, the Pascal. I came across this quote years ago, and it has been an anchor for me. If you know French, which I don't want to butcher it because je ne parle pas français, but you might enjoy the French too. So Pascal in the 17th century said, the heart has its reasons, air quotes, that reason does not know. The heart has its reasons that reason does not know. In other words, I love the mind and I love the intellectual engagement of all the questions that come before us. But there's a time when I go into the chamber of the heart that the mind, I have to say, okay, you can take a seat now or wait at the door or be, a curious observer. But the chamber of the heart is where I want us to grow as a congregation and in our personal lives. So what is it when we engage that place? What is the interface? So for some Buddhist practices, it's spaciousness. And that's a lovely, calm, open place. And that becomes a canvas on which the still mind and the open heart can take shape. And one other way of engaging that interface is as love. And what happens when we go into the chamber and find love there? Remember in the Dostoevsky reading where he said, if we love all things, we begin to perceive the divine mystery of things. And I know some of you are going to snag on the word divine. And again, I would like to ask you to leave the questioning mind at the door. It doesn't mean that you become a non-thinking person. But what is the divine mystery of things? In the last couple months, I've watched a couple of videos of other churches locally, and I've been just kind of curious, asking the question, so what are some of the practices still going on that engage and nourish people? And I saw that there's a type of singing that it gives content for the mind to be content with, but that invites a deepening into the heart. And some of our songs, I think we're finding our way into some of that kind of music. And then I started thinking, well, maybe we should make some of our own songs. Maybe we should find those words that resonate with this congregation, that don't pinch the toes of objections, but that we can find our own voice. And I had a couple of thoughts, and these are just suggestions because I want us to start thinking, how can we articulate this place? Possibly, may I be a vessel of the light and love of life. Is that something that UUFCO could find our way into? May I be a vessel of the light and love of life. Or how about this? Because in my experience, as the embers of the heart are kept burning, I know that's a really dangerous metaphor. As the embers are glowing, a radiance may emerge. And how about this? Oh, radiant love, be shining. Shine in my heart today. Shine through my eyes like love's clear skies to lead me on life's way. Is that something that we could sing? Is that something that we could cultivate or enjoy, touch, an appetizer to come back to again and again? I don't know. Let's be thinking about songs that we might sing, thoughts that we could use as prayers or as mantras, the words that we repeat, not to numb the mind, but it is to cultivate a different awareness within the heart. I suspect that there are many seeds lying fallow in your heart that you have maybe from past religious contexts or a poem or a prayer that came into your heart along the way that may have just gotten covered over. And I encourage you to look for those seeds or begin to water them and see what is authentic and life-giving for you. I have a couple of tools that I would recommend as well. So one is, it's called a heart chakra meditation music. Now I found these things on YouTube. We have a slide just to give you a clue. This company, Meditative Mind, has several product lines of the chakras. And what those are, if you've noticed when Peggy, our pianist, is playing and she's got the 7 colors on a chart, and the heart chakra, and those represent the chakras, the energy centers. And again, this is wisdom that we have gotten from India and the East. The heart chakra, what I've found when I listen to that music, I can relax, and we say, open the heart. So I would say, look for that track or others like it on YouTube. Just check it out, see what it's like. And another tool that I'd like to share with you is an app. This was actually a sort of fun introduction to a new friend, somebody who had attended the seminary I attended, but at a different time. And he's created an app called Enjoy This Moment. It's available on iOS and Android. And no, I'm not getting a commission for saying this. But in it, there are many little audio and some visual, little bits to help us cultivate and navigate our interior space. So I would highly recommend those 2 things. I also want to give you what I'm calling the nap challenge and the yoga challenge. And that is, if you are somebody who enjoys taking a nap, I would recommend that as you lie down or sit down in your comfortable chair, to bring what you love to your heart and just let it flower there. And the same if you practice any yoga, that there's particularly in the last pose in the savasana or the relaxation at the end when we're invited to digest the experience, to use that time also to bring the awareness of love to your heart. We talk about the seventh principle, the interconnected web of all existence, of which we are a part. And I wonder if sometimes we see that on just a horizontal plane. Every person, every element, every planet. So that starts to feel multidimensional. But when we engage the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part, with our heart, we just don't know what's going to happen, do we? So I'm hoping that in the coming year, that we'll be able together to find ways that are meaningful in our shared time. And also, I encourage each of you in your own personal time to find a way where love is nourished and we become brilliant students, radiant students in the school of love. May it be so. Our closing song can be another tool. It's that meditation on breathing. And the version that we're going to enjoy was done by the Unitarian Society of Denver. And take this song in your heart as we go forward. And let's sing this meditation on breathing together.
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out.
At the end of our service today, there will be a slide on how you can make a financial offering to sustain and support the work of our church. If you have a chalice in your home, please extinguish it now as we say our covenant together. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Today's benediction is something that we will read together. We've sung it together before, and today we'll just read this together as our blessing, our intention for our hearts and for the world. Let's say this together. May all beings be well and happy. May all beings be free from strife. May all beings return to love. Peace be with you forevermore. We'll enjoy the postlude, and then after that, stick around for our virtual coffee hour.